Hey guys, welcome back to the Ghost and Friends YouTube channel. Texas-Oklahoma week continues here. Welcome, Mr. John Williams, managing editor of the Sooners Wire, host of the Locked On Sooners podcast. How you doing tonight, John?
Hey, I'm doing great. It's the most wonderful time of the year. I love Christmas,
Absolutely.
but there's nothing quite like OU Texas Red River Showdown, rivalry, shootout, however you want to describe it. It's the best week in college sports.
Absolutely agree with you there. I know that we've only exchanged roughly, a paragraph worth of exchanges with one another, but that's what I tell everybody. This is my Christmas. It is my favorite day of the year. And often in my lifetime, my favorite day of the year is absolutely sucked at the end. But I love this day like no other. And so very well said. I had another Sooner guest on last night, said the exact same thing. It is Christmas, the best time of the year, the best rivalry in college football. I don't care. Don't knock it until you try it. Once you walk inside the state fairgrounds, normally for the second Saturday in October, your eyes will wake up a little bit as far as the whole rivalry scenes. Mr. John, talk to me a little bit about Locked On Sooners. How did that all get started? Obviously, you're doing a lot for the Sooners. So talk about Sooners Wire a little bit too, if you would.
Yeah. So my kind of entry into covering sports all started actually with the Dallas Cowboys. I'm a big Dallas Cowboys fan, had been for a long time. And it all kicked off whenever my daughter was born. We were actually in between our time. My wife and I and family lived in Ethiopia for the better part of 5 years. And then my daughter was born and we were stateside, and I'm just like, I need something to do. So I started writing for an independent Dallas Cowboys blog, did that for 4 years basically, and just through some connections. A guy knew that I was a big Oklahoma fan, thanks to my wife. Just got started with Locked On Sooners and have been one of the hosts on that for the last 4 years now. I started in 2020 there. And then in 2021, picked up as the site editor, now lead writer is what we're called over at Sooners Wire. And yeah, man, it's such a blast to be able to cover sports as kind of a side hustle a little bit. But again, get to talk about a team that I really, really enjoy talking about and covering, and for better or for worse, for all of the glory of the 34-30 from last year and for all of the stink that was 49-0 2 years ago. I mean, there's nothing like being able to talk sports. I think sports should be fun, and talking sports should be fun as well. So man, it's just a blast. I'm blessed to be able to get to do what I do, both with Locked On Sooners and with Sooners Wire.
Absolutely. So a little bit of Sooner magic for yourself personally that didn't take place on the football field. And that's great to hear. John is an exceptional person. I am just now getting to know him a little bit. And I'll tell you this, I'm very quickly impressed by this gentleman. So any of you Texas guys, I know you've been hard on him a little bit for, I don't know if it was one clip or multiple, but like he just said, it's all in fun. And so that's kind of my whole idea behind my account, behind this channel. I love to have guests of other teams, rivals, doesn't matter. Let's talk ball. If you can talk ball a little bit, and do it in a fun way, it makes the playful banter, easier to take. Those little pokes and jabs, if we're talking ball and having fun right around those, and hey, we're all good, man. And so I fully think the same way with you on that. And so good job. Congratulations, all the success with Sooners Wire, Locked On Sooners. But now let's talk about, 2024. You talked about 2023. That probably doesn't feel as good for you guys if you don't lose the year before 49-0. So all of those little moments of agony, like they make those the highs, they make them the highs and worth it. But so in 2024, first impression of Texas as they get ready, a lot of people feel that Oklahoma is the best team that they'll have faced so far, almost to the midway point in the season. What are your thoughts, initial thoughts on Red River 2024?
Yeah, so I'm kind of one of those people that feels that way. I know Michigan's a really, really good team, or I say they're a good team, not a really, really good team. Texas is a really, really good team to a potentially great team. I just think that Michigan team, just once it was much understood that they weren't going to be able to throw the ball like at all. It was similar in a way to 49-0 in the Red River Showdown in 2022. It was just once they couldn't throw the ball and Texas was able to shut down the run, it was kind of all she wrote. And, Texas did what Texas was supposed to do, and they dominated that game and won handily. But I think even with some of the question marks that Oklahoma has had this season, I think they're trending in a positive direction that, again, I mean, they're ranked higher than where Michigan's at right now. They're coming off a big win. Michigan's coming off an upset loss to Washington. So, there's a lot that Oklahoma has to answer still, but I do think that from a defensive standpoint, Oklahoma's defense is playing really good football. I think the offense is trending in the right direction after the quarterback change, and they've got some talented pieces on offense. And Michael Hawkins Jr., I think he's a better quarterback than Alex Orji at this point, even though he's just a true freshman. He's a guy that can throw the football, as evidenced what we saw against Auburn. They didn't ask him to throw it a ton, but when he did, he was efficient with it. And then he had the big 60-yard completion in the fourth quarter that really started to kind of kickstart the comeback. You don't get that big completion that leads to a touchdown on the next couple of plays, then the pick six that happens on the next series is not as significant if you don't get that offensive touchdown in the fourth quarter. So, Texas has every right to be the number one team in the nation. They have every right to be a big favorite over Oklahoma going into this game. They've played complete football, even without their starting quarterback for 2 games. Arch Manning looked really, really good. And I'm not going to be one of these people that sits here and bangs on them because of some turnovers. Turnovers happen. They're part of the game. And at some point, we have to quit talking about young quarterbacks and turnovers. If you either want a young quarterback to play football or you don't. And if you want a young quarterback to play football, you're going to have to live and die with some turnovers. That's just the reality of the situation. And I think the Oklahoma Sooners were right to make the move from Jackson Arnold to Michael Hawkins because it was more than just the turnovers. The clip that's out there that has everybody in Texas fandom, fired up about my Jackson Arnold take, it's fair. Hey, come at me. It's fine. Been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. It's going to happen. But I think what happened with Jackson Arnold was more than just the turnovers. It was kind of the mentality that he was displaying and maybe some lack of confidence that he had that led to the turnovers, that led to some poor decision making. And so the Oklahoma Sooners coaching staff felt like they needed to go to a guy that they trusted a little bit more to protect the football and just make the right decision. Some of what Jackson Arnold was going through was just not good decision making, even in the RPO game or the read option game. Not handing the ball off when there was literally a hole the size of a whale for a running back to go through. He was just forcing things way too much. So where Oklahoma's at coming out of the bye, they're the healthiest they've been along the offensive line all season. They had the 5 guys that they projected to be the starters available for Auburn. They played the entire game, didn't get dinged up, went into the bye week healthy, and got 2 weeks to get ready for Texas. That kind of stuff matters. I know we don't want to talk about injuries and we don't want to sit here and make excuses for injuries. Nobody's going to feel sorry for Oklahoma because they've been banged up and injured. That's fine. And I'm not sitting here trying to say, that's a reason why they've had some issue, or maybe I am trying to say that actually. What I will say is it's part of the story, right? It's part of the context that is the story of Oklahoma football for 2024. So going into Red River, the offensive line is as healthy as it's been, but they still have issues at wide receiver with a bunch of guys that are banged up and injured. And so the availability of some of those guys, in particular, Deion Burks, is going to be a big question mark going into the game. And if he's available, it definitely provides a big time playmaker for Michael Hawkins and the offense to work with. If he's not available, you're going to have some guys step up against, again, a pretty good Texas defense.
I fully agree. Let me ask you this. Do you think that Texas has been tested yet? I mean, we talked, obviously, if you say yes, it's by Michigan, but it's still at that time, Michigan returning a lot of talent on defense, yes, but replacing some really, really good linebackers and a couple of other spots there. Not everything's going to flow the way it did, obviously in the 2023 national championship season for Michigan. And then on offense, you replace everything. So I get, both sides of that coin, that was a very one-sided game in the way that Texas had no chance of losing that game, considering Michigan has no attack on offense. They were going to have to line up and try to run Texas over because they're incapable of doing anything else.
Right.
And so I understand when, you would say that Oklahoma is the best team that we've played so far. I think that's more than fair. But yeah, so I mean, as far as a test goes, you know, I mean, Oklahoma is the first true test for Texas.
Well, I'll say we can look at it in a different light because you lose your starting quarterback, and that creates a test for your entire team because
Fair.
it's a different dynamic. You know, you lose Quinn Ewers, who is one of the most experienced quarterbacks in college football, and that matters. Arch Manning is an uber talented player, and he's going to be incredible. And he's already shown a lot of really good things early in his tenure with the Longhorns. But you go from a ton of experience to no experience, and it tests your entire team. And I think the way that they responded after it was 14-6 against Mississippi State at halftime, the way they responded in the second half, I think it showed what this Texas team is made of. And I think that's what is going to kind of be part of what carries them through the season is they're a much grittier team and maybe a team that's a little bit more complete and not completely reliant on the quarterback playing, big football. And listen, Michigan was a test. I'm not going to sit here and say it wasn't. That's a difficult road environment. But you could tell that kind of the air went out of the big house. The air went out of Ann Arbor pretty early in that game. It was one of those situations where it's like, as soon as Michigan struggled to run the football, it was kind of all she wrote. And when you're a defense and you see your offense not really providing much of anything, I think it's easy for the defense to kind of like, okay, time to pack it in. Let's just go home. But again, I'm not going to sit here and take anything away from Texas. Texas did exactly what they were supposed to do as the team that is projected to be a college football playoff team, a team that is a contender for the national title. In those situations, you go and do that. You dominate Michigan. You kind of made them tap out at that point. And so, yeah. But I think, again, you've had multiple tests early, and this is just going to be another one along the road. I think every SEC team, Oklahoma, Texas, Georgia, Bama, you're seeing it. Parity is upon us in the SEC. Every week's a test. I don't think anybody expected Vanderbilt to be a test for Bama. I certainly did not. I took Bama minus the points against Vandy, and now I look like an idiot. That's just the way it goes. We're same with Arkansas and Tennessee. Nobody probably expected Arkansas to put up a fight against Tennessee. I think everybody expected Missouri to be a little bit better on the road against Texas A&M College Station, and that didn't go the way anybody thought, probably especially Eli Drinkwitz. So I expect that, this is going to be just another Red River rivalry, where I was kind of looking back over the last 11 years, the higher ranked team is just 5-6 in the Red River rivalry. So the lower ranked team is 5-6. So winning 45% of the time over the last 11 years. Sometimes that was Oklahoma being the higher ranked team and losing. Sometimes that was Texas being the higher ranked team and losing.
Yep.
It's just one of those games that you literally, and it's cliche to say it, but you literally throw everything out the window and the game is different. I think going into last year, probably everybody expected Texas to roll Oklahoma, and it turned out to be a fantastic game, an instant classic.
I mean, it seems to always play out that way. I mean, we have so many one-score games outside of 2022 where you guys had to run tight end Wildcat coming into it. I mean, like,
gross.
A lot of fun for us. But
I was ready to fire Jeff Lebby after that. I was done with him after that, man. That was the best you had to come up with in that. Sorry.
That was a game where it seemed like, hey, if we can do this and pick up 3 to 4 yards of play, like maybe play them to 2 scores, we'll take it. But yeah, weird strat coming into that one. Cause I mean, it's not like you're playing to win the game, obviously, but it's just hard to fathom, that's what we thought was the best route to getting that done. But it was a pretty tall task because Texas, I mean, still had Bijan and a really good wide receiver core. Quinn obviously was coming back off injury. Do you think, I think that you'll agree here. I definitely think that the bye week favors the Sooners a lot more than it does Texas.
I mean, I think it's huge for both teams, but I do think it's huge for the Sooners in that you keep your offensive line healthy. It gives you more time, more first team reps for Michael Hawkins Jr. because, again, true freshman quarterback, you got to give him as many reps as possible, especially working with, an offensive line that hadn't really been together for much of this year. Having all those first team reps is huge. But again, the bye week is going to help potentially, and probably most likely, I'm expecting Quinn Ewers to be available for this week. If this game was being played a week ago, would Quinn Ewers have played? I think probably he would have tried to gut it out. no pun intended. But would he have been able to go? I don't know. But I think it definitely benefits both teams. But I think, yeah, it definitely benefits Oklahoma more because they really needed to get healthy in some spots.
Right, absolutely. And I mean, talking about we still only have one game and a quarter or so of tape on Michael Hawkins and what that offense could potentially look like. Obviously, multiple places for Oklahoma need to get healthy, and so can you update us any on the wide receiver room? Do you know if anybody's going to be available that maybe was thought not to be available this week or wouldn't have been, going into a bye week if you had a game then?
All right, so we'll just go down the list because it is a mash unit of
Yeah.
wide receiver injuries. So we'll start with the guys that won't be available. Jaden Gibson, 6'6", 6'5" wide receiver, 4-star prospect out of high school, was a guy that everybody was expecting to have a big year this year. Got injured in fall camp, out for the season with an ACL. Jalil Farouk broke his foot in the first game of the season after what was the biggest pass play of the season up until the 60-yarder against Auburn. He's out 6 to 8 weeks. They say he's getting his boot off soon, but I don't expect him to be back for a while. He had 130 yards receiving against Texas last year. A very important player for Oklahoma's offense out. Andrel Anthony tore his ACL in the Red River Showdown last year, was Oklahoma's leading receiver going into that game. He won't be available probably this week as well. Then you're looking at Nick Anderson, who had nearly 800 receiving yards and 10 touchdowns last year.
You don't have to say his name again.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
No.
He hit 4 yards in the Red River Showdown last year, but they were the four most important yards.
Yeah, they mattered.
So he battled a hamstring from fall camp and then was available for just a few plays against Tennessee and then was out. And they don't know when he's going to be back. And I don't think anybody has any expectations for him to be back anytime soon. So the guy we're significantly monitoring is Deion Burks. He's the Purdue wide receiver transfer, a guy that has great explosiveness, great quickness. He's a 5'9" guy, so he's not super tall, but he's so fast and he's so explosive. And he's playing in that Drake Stoops role. And he's been really good so far, but you haven't been able to fully see what he's capable of because of some of the limitations throughout the offense. And so we're hoping that he'll be available this week because it just provides Michael Hawkins another big weapon and somebody who can win deep and win downfield, but more importantly, can win in the short to intermediate passing game where Oklahoma is going to have to find some success to be able to move the ball consistently against Texas. And then along the offensive line, they've had a number of guys out at different points in the first 5 games of the season. But again, against Auburn, everybody was back that was supposed to be the projected starting offensive line. So things are trending up in that direction. Dasan McCullough, who plays that cheetah linebacker spot and will linebacker spot for the Oklahoma Sooners, a guy that's super, super rangy, super lanky, had a big stop on that goal line stand for Oklahoma last year. A couple really big, edge setting moments for the Sooners in that one. He is going to be back probably, but I don't imagine that he'll have a huge snap count for the Oklahoma Sooners defense. One, because he's getting himself back into game shape. And two, I don't know who you take off the field to give him snaps because the linebacker core is playing good football right now. So that's kind of where Oklahoma's at from an injury standpoint. Oh, Taylor Tatum, the 5-star running back out of Longview, he's expected to be back this week after missing Auburn with a concussion that he suffered in the Tennessee game. So that's another weapon for the offense to get back that could potentially make some things happen for the Sooners offense.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for all of the updates. I mean, I hated to see Jaden go down in the preseason or fall camp. Tough. And then obviously Farouk, very, very early in the season, the guy with a lot of fire. I'll always think about him standing and, very politely welcoming our kids to the field last year and then going out and having a big game,
Mm-hmm.
And so, hey, it's a great rivalry and that's part of it. So I'm hope he gets better as soon as he can, gets back out there on the field for the Oklahoma, because he's had a long, fun career with the Sooners. But yeah, I did see Deshaun's tweet earlier in the week. Just the simple smiley face. I feel like he's not doing that without the intention of playing in this game. And like you said, it might be on a limited snap count. Most likely is. I knew he'd be an issue. I follow all of high school recruiting way too much, and I knew as soon as he went there, along with a couple other defenders that I wanted that we lost out in battles to you guys with. But yeah, the last year, Billy Bowman, a guy that y'all won over Texas, obviously made a big play there on the hit on JT Sanders inside the red zone in the first quarter. Deshaun was very involved. Yeah, part of the rivalry, man. You root for these kids in high school, and you're like, yeah, I really hope they go to my school, and then you get to hate them for the next 3 to 4 years, you know.
Yeah.
But
Like Colin Simmons, Oklahoma was kind of in on that at different times and
right.
hated seeing him go to Texas, but good to see him having success.
I will never forget being a very young teenager and being very disappointed that one Mr. Tommy Harris committed to Oklahoma, because I knew he was going to be a problem. I tweeted about that today. Yeah. I knew he'd be an issue, and it's just part of it. Adrian Peterson, we can do this forever. But let me ask you this. Peyton Thorne threw for 300 or over 300 yards against the Oklahoma defense. Obviously had the one late, very, very, very punishing interception that cost his team the game. Do you have concerns about the secondary with Texas and, you know, either Quinn or potentially Arch? And then obviously Coach Sark, who is a very good play caller, likes to throw the ball down the field, even though with Quinn, we haven't really shown that yet this year. But yeah, any concerns about Oklahoma's defense and a lot of offensive firepower for Texas?
Yeah, if there's one area of weakness or concern, it's Oklahoma in the deep passing game. Other than some big plays that they've allowed, the defense has played really, really good football, but you know, they've not been at their best against good wide receivers. I think Auburn has a really good wide receiver trio. If y'all aren't aware of those guys, Keandre Lambert-Smith and Cam Coleman and Malcolm Simmons, those dudes are really good, and they're going to be problems if Auburn's offense can get it together consistently. But Texas has got a good trio of wide receivers in their own right. They can make Oklahoma pay if they're not where they're supposed to be. And so much of it's going to be team defense to be able to contain guys like Isaiah Bond, who can take the top off the defense pretty quickly. And so I think we'll see more shell coverage and hoping that the front seven can stop the run and control the short to intermediate passing game, because you don't want to be committing too many guys to the box if you can help it. But because Oklahoma's going to have to be aware of that, because listen, Kenai Walker has been good. Des Malone has been good, but they've definitely been susceptible to the big plays. And even against Auburn, they were in good spots on those big pass plays that they gave up. They just didn't get their head around to play the ball and gave up competitive plays. And so it wasn't like they were getting burned deep and just, 10 yards behind the guy. They were in step with the dude. It just didn't completely play the ball the way that they're supposed to play the ball. And that happens. I mean, you're not going to be 100% technical every single time that you're on the field, but you're going to have to be more lockstep with your techniques and with your understanding of what's going to happen out there against this group. Because if you are not covering Isaiah Bond, it's gone in an instant. Kind of like what we saw against Tennessee, again, a couple busted plays where they didn't have the right safety in the backfield, or the guy was, shifting over to one side of the field and they threw the opposite way and hit a big pass play and there was no safety help. So they've got to be more keyed in with their responsibilities to not allow these big plays. I think if Oklahoma's able to get, the Texas Longhorns, driving the football and going on 8, 9, 10 play drives, that'll benefit them more than obviously giving up those big plays. Because then, like what happened last year, you have opportunities to create turnovers in the red zone. If you're giving up big plays, you don't get those opportunities. You're having an opportunity to get into the backfield and maybe sack Quinn Ewers, or you're able to stop a run short of the first down marker and get off the field. So if they're a little bit more tuned in with what their responsibilities are supposed to be, then I think they'll have a better chance to slow some things down. But Texas is going to hit big pass plays. It's just going to happen. Fully expect it. It's a good offense with a good quarterback, a good set of wide receivers, and a really good offensive line. It's a prime recipe to create some big plays. Oklahoma just has to limit those. They can't allow it to be a consistent theme throughout the day if they want to have a chance to win the football game.
I fully agree with you there. I mean, just looking back at last year's game, Quinn had 3 turnovers, yes. And then at one point he completed, 23 or 24 straight passes. Texas and Sark are going to move the ball. That's inevitable. Yep. There's too much talent on the offensive line, running back room. We have, 7 different players that have at least 2 receiving touchdowns on this team. And and these are guys that, traditionally Steve Sarkisian has ran a very short wide receiver rotation. And not with this group. I think we'll see all of these guys. I think we'll see, 7 or 8 different players at minimum catch passes for Texas. And I'm curious to see what Oklahoma does with the Texas screen game, because the RPO, the screen game, the quick slants, quick outs, I want to see what Oklahoma does with that, especially if Quinn Ewers plays, because he's the one that's kind of mastered Sark's RPO system. Obviously it makes more sense for him to be there ahead of Arch because Arch has spent limited time there so far. But you talk, about playing a shell a little bit. Texas really hasn't, outside of the first third down up in Ann Arbor, 3rd and 13, and Isaiah Bond ran a little kind of like I guess a little hitch and go, more like a stutter and go, and picked up, 35 yards down the right sideline. Does Oklahoma make Texas and Quinn try to beat them deep? Even though that's been somewhat of a struggle for Oklahoma, sitting back and letting Texas operate in the RPO game, the screen game, which obviously they're going to be familiar with it. A lot of time to prep for this matchup, and you've seen it last year, you've seen it the year before. They'll be ready. It's just I am very curious to see what Oklahoma does as far as playing that, because Texas will paper cut you to death and never throw the ball over 30 yards if they're not forced to do so.
Right.
And so last year, like you said, though, y'all set yourselves up with opportunities to make plays, change the game a little bit, and then you never conceded. Obviously Texas gets down to the one. We know how that goes there in the second half. And that's what the Red River is, just finding a way to get things done. And so I fully agree with you. It's going to benefit Oklahoma greatly if Michael Hawkins and the offensive line, if they can find a way to bleed out some long drives, have Texas, maybe the DL's got their hands on their hips a little bit and they're not able to just have very short, quick drives. Which, next question, do you think the pace that Oklahoma likes to use at times, do you think that's something they go away from in this game, or maybe they just try to choose it wisely as a win and enforce that pace?
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting to see, because I think they do want to probably play a little bit more ball control. It's different pacing wise than under Jeff Lebby. Jeff Lebby was high octane, nonstop, and it worked. At the same time, he didn't really know when to rear back. He didn't really know when to pull the reins back on the offense and slow things down. A little bit of a disconnect there. I think Seth Luttrell and Zach Alley and Brent Venables, the head coach and offensive and defensive coordinators, have a little bit better of a feel for each other. For, hey, now's the time to go up tempo. Now's the time to pull things back a little bit. And so I think we'll see some ball control early, unless they're able to, make some things happen and move the ball with regularity. A lot of it's going to depend on how the defense is looking. If the defense is able to force some 3 and outs early, or if they're having to stay on the field for quite a bit of time, the offense will try to help them out a little bit and play complementary football. So much of it is going to be dependent on how Oklahoma tackles, because, hey, they are pretty good in the wide receiver screen game. They team tackle pretty good in that.
Look good against Tennessee.
Yeah. And that's been a really nice addition and a really nice revelation under Brent Venables. Under Alex Grinch, that was not the case. They were not a good team tackling team. And when I say team tackling, it's like, okay, maybe the first guy misses, but there's 1 or 2 more guys following him to clean it up. That's what I mean by a team tackling.
They run to the football really well.
Right. And so I think that's where Oklahoma, can kind of slow some things down for Texas. You go back to the 2021 game, right? Xavier Worthy catches that, opening screen pass and takes it to the house. Brent Venables actually mentioned that in a press conference not long ago, talking about Oklahoma's ability to rally to the ball on the wide receiver screen, because guys understand their responsibilities. And if they're not the guy to make the play, they're the guy to set the edge so that somebody else can make the play. And I think you see that on the field. So yeah, so much of it is going to be, how much does the Oklahoma defense have to stay on the field? Can they force some 3 and outs? Can they rally to the ball? But you can't, as much as maybe they want to commit 8, 9 guys to the box, with the speed that Texas has, you have to be more aware than that. You have to at least play some cover 3, leave yourself a safety in the back so that they've got some help, because we don't really have the speed on the outside that Texas has. And we got big, strong, long corners that are going to make things difficult. But if Isaiah Bond gets behind a corner, he's gone. Jonte Cook, same. If those guys get behind the corner, it's off to the races. So they're going to have to, and they'll vary their defensive looks. They'll vary their defensive fronts. They'll play some 4-man. They'll play some 3-man. It's going to be a very diverse defensive set that Zach Alley is going to put out there. But he's going to try to put pressure on Texas early and see how it goes.
I like that. I've said, if Oklahoma's path to victory in this game, you have to jump on Texas early. I think that if Texas gets us out of there even after a quarter, it's a Red River shootout, man. Anything can happen, yes. But I would, if we got out of there even after a quarter, I'd feel really good because we've, whatever y'all planned, there's going to be something that Brent and that offense, I know he's not the offensive guy there on that stuff, but I know that staff's going to have something cooking. They're going to try to scheme some early points. It could be a trick play, maybe a double move or two, with max protection, like whatever it is. Oklahoma knows, a fast start, obviously, everybody wants a fast start. And so for me, I think it's imperative for Oklahoma to get out to a fast start. Hey, if you guys could have an opening drive of like 7 minutes and find 7 points out of it and, just kind of set the tempo for that'd go a long, long ways. And so I think it's really important for you guys to get out to a big start. I think that Texas, obviously there's going to be a big emphasis on not turning the ball over for Quinn, if it is indeed Quinn. And so I'm curious to see what it looks like because I don't know like how, if Quinn will come out taking shots or if we'll try to find ways in the screen game. Because last couple of years, early in that game, we went to some screens against you guys, try to throw some short and intermediate stuff. I think those first couple of play calls on both sides are going to be massive. I really, really do. Because if you're Oklahoma, for me, if I'm Oklahoma or Seth Luttrell, and I'm almost like, let's just let them know that everything's on the table, and let's just see how far Michael Hawkins can throw the football on first down here opening this game. Let's just see, because we'll find a coverage, we'll find a matchup that's one-on-one, because Texas is probably going to come in there. Maybe, they play it somewhat safe to start the game, but I think Texas is going to go in there looking to create negative plays, be aggressive from the jump. And so that's just what I would do if I were on the other side. I said the same thing about Alex Orji, and what happened? We're playing them in a box. They never attempted to take the top off of the defense or anything. But what do I know? I was only an OC for 2 years, so. And not
I'm always down for let's go 8-man protect and let's just fire it down the field and let's see what happens, especially with a guy like JJ Hester, who's got good size and good speed, just do it. Even if it's incomplete, just do it once just to make them think, hey, that could come back again. And then you can open some things up in the short to intermediate game for Oklahoma. But yeah, I'm always a big fan of taking a shot. Because what's the worst? I mean, you throw it. It's like I said early on. You throw an interception. What's the big deal? You took a shot. It happens sometimes. But yeah, I want to see them kind of let Michael Hawkins just be Michael Hawkins and go play football. And it's the same thing I said about Jackson Arnold earlier in the season. It's like, dude, just go play football. Quit stressing so much. But what do I know? Because they benched him and here we are. So, but I feel like I'm seeing the same thing with Nico Yamaleava at Tennessee, right? Josh Heupel has done such a wonderful job of creating an offense that takes all the pressure off of his quarterback to throw the ball, dating back to the bowl game win against Iowa. He didn't have to do a whole lot in that game because the Iowa offense is stinko and they didn't have to throw the ball a ton. They didn't really have to throw the ball a ton against Oklahoma. He kept things simple. Well, against Arkansas last week, it's 4th down and 5 or 6, and the game is on the line, and you need your quarterback to throw the ball into the end zone. You cannot try to run for a touchdown that far out, and he's gun shy about it. So there's a point where it's like, yes, preach turnovers. You don't want a quarterback that's just willy-nilly with the football. At the same time, they're 5-star quarterbacks or 4-star quarterbacks for a reason. And it's because they can throw the dang ball and they can throw it really, really well. So you got to take the reins off at some point and let them throw the football.
Yeah. It's funny that you bring up Nico. We do we give out college football plays one night a week on this channel. It's devoted to that. And last week, which I will say this, Vandy plus 23 was on the card. Got to start listening, John, because that was an easy one.
You got me.
I was big on the it's hard to get up from that win over Georgia from an emotional standpoint, and you're going on the road. That was my thing. I was like, it's really, I know it's Vanderbilt, right? It's only 23 points. So I get that, but hey, long live the Vandy of old. They're not them anymore. But and then at the same time, I haven't dogged Nico. It's not that I'm not dogging him. I continue to kind of downplay Tennessee's start because exactly what you said. Bowl game against Iowa, he didn't have to do anything to beat Iowa. North Carolina State, their defense won that game. A big pick six there late in the second quarter. We're looking at, I think, a 3-point game, almost going into half. He turned the ball over a couple times there. He's going to be a stud. He is going to be fantastic. But hey, when you're finally asked to beat somebody with your arm against Arkansas, you fail to do so. I mean, he was outplayed in that game. And I didn't think that would be a case. I didn't think that Taylor Green. But hey, even Malachi Nelson, the backup for it's not Malachi Nelson, Malachi Singleton, wrong, yeah. Malachi Singleton. He got in there for Arkansas and he made a play to go win the game, or made a couple plays to go win the game. And so, yeah, maybe it is the system. Maybe it is Josh Heupel and that first read not being there. And then things just kind of, maybe it's too mossy and you just kind of break down. But, just let him go play ball. Let him go figure out his thing. And it's huge for these guys to just know that they have the confidence from their coach and to just go in there and, hey, be you. And that takes me back forever ago to Vince Young. I mean, I hate to do that, but hey, we don't have too many wins over you guys, okay, in the last 20 years. So I'm going to bring up a year that we did. But following the 2020 or the 2004 12-0 Oklahoma shutout over Texas in the Red River game, apparently, there was a big conversation and they just kind of talked to Vince about like, hey, like we got to figure this whole thing out. Like, there's no way a guy like you should ever be getting shut out. This isn't like quotes from the actual conversation, but and then after that, he never loses another game, looks like a completely different guy. He's singing, he's dancing. And I'm not saying that's every guy is what they should be doing. That's not the nature of every player. Maybe they lead just by their play on the field. Maybe it's just by talking on the sidelines. A lot of different ways to be a leader on the field. And I'm not saying Oklahoma needs a Michael Hawkins to be that leader, but it helps, a lot when guys can look at their quarterback and say, hey, we trust this guy and he's doing his thing. If we lose 34-3 to you guys, I'm telling you right now, I'll let John shave my head on this channel. And it's not out of disrespect for you guys. It's just like,
I'll make the drive.
Yeah, I'm in New Braunfels, Texas, buddy. We're an hour south of Austin.
Oh, New Braunfels. That's beautiful.
It's a fun place. It really is. Kiddos love it. I don't have a lot of hair though, so I'm not even really risking anything here. But thanks for watching Extreme Gamer Mac. Appreciate you being here and checking out John. Try to be as non-biased as I can when I'm talking college football, but I do love Texas a great deal. So, but yeah, thanks for being here. You guys have owned us in my lifetime, and 34-3 with these two teams, that would hurt just about as much as anything. Probably the most hurt I've ever been was the 65-13 and 04 because, yeah, man, y'all were really good. Y'all beat everybody like that, though. Y'all beat A&M by 77. You beat Oklahoma State by 60+, Texas by 52. Good times. But yeah, thanks for being here, Extreme Gamer Mac. Good luck to your Sooners this weekend. I mean that mostly. But yeah, so just I'm curious to see what Oklahoma does with Hawkins as far as like, let him rip, just let him be a playmaker. But at the same time, you do have to have ball control. You are going to want to have some drives to kind of take out that Texas defense. Looking at Texas offensively or defensively, either side, maybe both. Comment on whatever you'd like. Is there anything that kind of excites you as far as something that Oklahoma can exploit or take advantage of?
Yeah, I think if they're able to, kind of coalesce with that offensive line and they can find a run game, I think that allows them to be able to take some shots down the field. It's hard to know exactly what Texas is because, again, you didn't like Michigan, solid team, but you don't have a passing game. Right. Blake Shapen, we've seen the Blake Shapen story on a number of occasions with Mississippi State. Jeff
he didn't even play though. He's out.
Yeah, that's right. He didn't even play that game.
We didn't even get to see him. I think Shapen would have done well with Levy, to be honest, but yeah, we didn't get to see it.
So I just don't know what Texas's secondary is right now. And I think that's where maybe my big question comes in for this game is Texas's secondary better than it was last year? Where, listen, solid, it got you guys to the college football playoff, but we saw at different times where it could be exploited a little bit. I don't know if, your interior defensive line group is as good as it was a year ago when you had Devondre Sweat and Byron Murphy. I think your edge group is better than it was a year ago. Obviously your linebacker core is better, I think, than it was a year ago. So it's a Texas team that I'm still curious as to what exactly they are. I think offensively, we know what they are. They're really, really good. It's the defense that I'm not sure about just yet. I think they're going to be really good at stopping the run because we saw it against Michigan. USC went into that game knowing Michigan was only going to try to run the ball because it's all they could really do. And even in the 4-minute drill, when Michigan was down a touchdown and they needed a touchdown to win, all they did was run the ball, and USC still couldn't stop it. So I think Texas is still a really good run team, a run defending team. So if they can slow down the run and put Michael Hawkins into some long down and distances, I think that does not bode necessarily well. But can Oklahoma find some things in the passing attack? That's going to be where I'm most intrigued about this game, because Oklahoma's going to have to hit some plays I think in the intermediate game specifically, but also if you can create a big play down the field, obviously that's huge, but you're going to have to win an intermediate game consistently to have a chance to win the game.
And I mean, you know this as much as I do, but more times than not, obviously a team that wins the turnover battle in this one, that goes a long way. But in our particular rivalry, it's a team that runs the football better. And y'all were able to last year, between Dylan Gabriel and a few backs, keep us on our toes as far as what you were doing. You threw on first downs, you ran off, you were able to mix it up. And so you can't become one-dimensional. Obviously, this in football. And that's where Michael Hawkins is going to play a big role in this game. He really is. I understand the concerns, or maybe the critique of the Texas secondary, because we just don't know yet. Trust me, man, I'm over here begging with all my soul and heart to believe, we've made a significant jump. I think we've made a significant jump. We have better talent. Andrew Makuba coming in for Clemson was big. Michael Taft's experience, the mayor of Austin. We love that guy. Manny Mohammed was a freshman last year, kind of grown up a little bit. Jahdae Barron is a stud. We have the skill there. Okay. But we do have, Texas fans, we had that, probably once a day for some of us, the flashback to, Dylan Gabriel going 70 yards in a minute and 12 seconds to win that game, or Michael Penix dotting us up in the Sugar Bowl. And so I think it's fair, because we have not played a quarterback really of any substance. No disrespect to Alex Orji, Michael Van Buren last week, or any of the quarterbacks that we've seen, but we just really haven't been tested there and in the secondary. So I think that's a fair critique. I really, really do. I do think Texas is going to be a lot better in the secondary when that time comes. I think we're pretty fortunate, to be honest with you. Looking through the first 5 games we played, the quarterbacks we played, we get a freshman, Michael Hawkins. Okay. We turn around to get Carson Beck. I get the Georgia hype. I am not as high on Carson Beck as most. He looked great in the second half against Alabama. Absolutely, he did. Just not a guy I really fear. I'm not. He'll probably throw for 412 touchdowns. Now that I say that, he's a great player. I'm just saying I don't think he's a world beater. I think there's a couple quarterbacks in the SEC that are better than him. Should have been my point. Would have been a lot nicer to go that way. But then after that, it's Diego Pavia. And it's is he the best quarterback that Texas is going to see on this schedule until we see a Connor Wigman from A&M, And so we're pretty fortunate with the quarterbacks that we've been able to see so far, which a lot of our games are cupcakes. We are lucky that, no more J.J. McCarthy, and we get the 2 quarterback platoon that Michigan trotted out. But I think it's more than fair. But at the same time, I definitely think Texas is better in the secondary. Hey, but now's the time to go prove it, man. I can sit here and say it all I want. If we can question it, we'll find out on Saturday. So it's definitely going to be go ahead. I was
going to say that's the part. I just don't know yet. I think it is better. I just don't know if it is. It's same with my offense. I think it's going to be better. I just don't know that it's going to be better yet. And until I see it, it's just kind of winging a prayer and hope at this point that it's going to be better. I think your point about Michael Hawkins' running ability is going to be a key factor, but he's not a dude that you can play like Jalen Hurts and run him 20 times.
Yeah, 20 times.
No. I don't think that bodes well for him or for the offense in particular, but some spots, 5-7 carries, designed carries, and he's going to scramble on you for another 5 that will make a big difference in the game. But yeah, so much of it's going to come down to, can Oklahoma win against Texas's secondary? Because it's going to be tough sledding again against the run, or against their run defense, because Oklahoma really hasn't found their run game just yet. But they're going to have to find some things, because it could be a struggle otherwise.
Yeah, I mean that'll be another thing you mentioned. Byron Murphy, Tavondre Sweat. Obviously, we've heard about that all offseason, all summer. Yeah, it's time now for Texas to really find out. I mean, I think that it's hard to say that we're on par as far as defensive line or defensive tackle play as we were last year when you had those two NFL guys in there, just moving people around. They had great games in Tuscaloosa. Now the tempo kind of wore them down in Oklahoma. I hated to see that, or sorry, in Dallas against you guys. I hated to see that, but I think that Vernon Broughton has been basically a little bit of a shining star so far in the early parts of this season. Now, This is his biggest test yet, time where he's going to probably draw a lot of attention. Alfred Collins has been really good. I definitely agree with you that the edge play for Texas is significantly better than it has been in some time. A room that where you have 4 or 5 guys that you'll see a lot of between Colton Vasek, Colin Simmons, Ethan Berg, Trey Moore. I'm missing a name somewhere, but yeah, I mean, I think between those and then obviously Anthony Hill, Mo Blackwell, Davey Benda, it's going to be hard for Oklahoma to run the ball. Texas isn't going to, they understand that, hey, if we let Oklahoma run for 5.5 a carry, we're probably going to lose this game, or at least it'll be a really competitive game, which we don't want that either. So I think, long story short, Hawkins will have his shots in the passing game because Texas will try to take that running game away. I'm sure that with the time off, those first downs, man, for Oklahoma are going to be so important. You got to have some positive plays. Much easier to play against this Texas team, if it is the team that I'm thinking it is defensively, from a 2nd and 5 or a 2nd and 6 compared to a 2nd and 9, 2nd and 10. Those little things go a long way, and y'all were really good about that last year.
Yeah, and even against Auburn 2 weeks ago, they didn't run the ball particularly well, aside from Michael Hawkins, 48-yard touchdown early in the game and a couple other scrambles that he was able to pick up some significant yardage, but they were still getting positive yardage. So instead of running, 3rd and 8, they had 3rd and 5 to deal with on more occasions. And so even if they were only picking up 3.3 yards per carry, it was still positive yardage. They didn't have as many 0 or negative yard run plays as they had against Tennessee, which again, Tennessee might have one of the better defensive lines in the country, but Auburn's got a pretty good defensive line themselves. They've got some talented players on that unit. And so the fact that Oklahoma was able to create at least fewer negative plays through the run game and had more positives, even if it was just 2-3 yards, that was still much better than what they had the week before against Tennessee. So even if they only averaged 3-4 yards a carry, but like you mentioned, they're getting themselves set up with 2nd and 6, 3rd and 5, that's still a much better place for them to be in than living in 2nd and 8, 3rd and 9, that kind of place. So much of that's going to matter, with Oklahoma's offense and setting Michael Hawkins up for success. I almost hawked two at him, but yeah.
I would have loved that. We definitely would have had to clip that and put that on the timeline.
Please don't.
Yeah. No. And then on the contrary, last year Oklahoma had a lot of tackles for loss in this game. I'm not going to share the number because it's an embarrassing amount if you're a Longhorn. But, that's going to be huge for Oklahoma because Texas, as we talked about earlier, it's a bit inevitable between the very experienced and talented offensive line, experience all over, talent at wide. They're going to move the ball. And so, hey, you're going to have to find some ways to blow up drives. The way that you kind of did the last drive Texas had the football last year on a first down. I know some Texas fans are going to say that there was an injury faked or something of that nature. But that first down play, that changed everything on that drive. We're kind of rolled through that second half offensively as far as moving the ball, other than getting stalled at the 1 there, buddy. But it seemed like Texas was just setting up to run the clock, pick up another first down or 2, kick a field goal, and walk out of there. Boom, big negative play for Oklahoma there to kind of put us behind the chains. And then you had a chance to get the ball back and go win it. Why are we reliving this? Why did we do all that? Oh man!
I don't know. But we're college football fans. We're gluttons for punishment.
Amen. But yeah, so I think it'll be a very, very important imperative for Oklahoma to create those negative plays, figure them out, and then at the same time, you really can't have too many, man. I think a first down, that's going to be as an important down as any down for the Sooners in that game. Just, but yeah, that's me as an old coach. Just I can see the vision,
Yeah, no, it's huge. I mean, efficiency is so important, and setting yourself up with even just a 2nd and 7, that just gives you so many more options to play with. You can still run the ball on 2nd and 7, right. Whereas, 2nd and 9, you might feel forced to pass it a little bit more. But yeah, I think if they can have some efficient first downs, which they hadn't had, prior to the Auburn game, they have some efficient first downs. then I think it's going to just set their offense up for a lot more success. I'm a big believer in success rate. I think it matters a lot. And if you can set yourself up with a successful first down on a regular basis, you're going to have a much better job converting third down. I also just don't play for third down. Just go get first downs every time you snap the ball and avoid third down altogether.
Yep. I mean, that would be really nice, right?
That's the best way.
I hope that's never your reality ever again in any Sooners game you watch. But if it happened, I'd feel pretty good for you, pat you on the back once, because how cool. But let me ask you this, and I'll start by sharing mine just to let you know, it goes both ways. The thing that kind of makes me fear Oklahoma. Wow, I could have got a lot of trouble there. The thing that scares me about this Oklahoma team the most, as far as on the field Saturday, is the front seven, and then paired with Brent Venables and Zach Alley. They're going to be very unique. They're going to show a lot of different looks, a lot of different fronts, guys dropping or blitzing and then dropping back, stunts, loops. We'll see it all, and I know that, hey, like, you can do your job really, really well. A lot of the time, bang, we give up one pass rush on a loop or some other stunt, and next thing we know, hey, Oklahoma has the football. That's solid last year. But on the flip side, for you, what is the thing about this Texas team that would give you the most fear, or maybe keep you up the most at night?
Yeah, I'm going to say that it's the the defensive line being as good or better than it was last year. If it is, or even if it's as good as it was last year, that could potentially pose problems for Oklahoma's offensive line, because, as has been discussed, for the last 9 months, Oklahoma's replacing all 5 of their starters from a year ago along the offensive line, all 5 of the guys that played in the Red River Showdown. And they've only had one full game together, and that was 2 weeks ago against Auburn. So if Texas's defensive line is really good in this game, especially early in the game, and they don't feel like they have to create pressure with more than 4 rushers, that poses a lot of problems for Oklahoma. Right. And, so much of defense is team defense. So if Texas is able to get pressure with just 4 guys, or stop the run by not having to commit a safety to the box, then that's going to really benefit Texas a lot. But if they have to start committing guys to the box, Oklahoma has a chance to take advantage of some of that. But we'll see, man. I know a lot of people would be like, why not? Why aren't you afraid about a true freshman quarterback going into the Red River Showdown, making his first start in the Red River Showdown? The first time a true freshman has ever started for Oklahoma in the Red River Showdown. Why aren't you afraid of that? Well, the dude's demeanor, he just doesn't seem fazed by any of the situations that he's been put in so far. Comes into the game against Tennessee down 16, might feel like he has to start pressing to try to will Oklahoma back into the game. Just stays within himself, just stays within the offense, doesn't try to do too much. Eventually they are able to find some success in the fourth quarter. Too little, too late, but they find some success. Same thing against Auburn. The offense isn't moving the ball significantly, consistently, but they just kind of keep at it. They keep persevering, and then they find the big pass play in the fourth quarter on the road in Jordan-Hare. Tough place to play sometimes. Unfazed by the environment. And I think he's going to go into this one confident in who he is and what he's capable of. He's a very talented quarterback. So yeah, most of it comes from, if Texas's defense is as good as everybody thinks it is, then that's going to be a problem for Oklahoma.
Absolutely. And I think it's still fair to say, that we don't know yet. I mean, we're very confident. You want to believe they're good if you're a Texas fan. At the same time, I've said, hey, I'm going to learn a lot more about this Texas team, as far as maybe what the roof is for this team, what to expect for what is looking to be like a very crazy November for Texas as far as schedule. I'll learn a lot more this weekend, and then obviously next weekend as well, with Georgia coming to Austin. John, tell me one thing, man. I know we didn't know each other back in the springtime or back last year when the schedule dropped. Were you pretty dang pissed off when you read your schedule, and then you took a glance over at Texas's?
Initially, but then realized that how they came to it was because Oklahoma had been really successful over the past decade, and Texas less so. So that's just kind of how it came to be. And so much of schedules, and this comes from my time covering the NFL, is that what you think the schedule is before the season is often not what the schedule turns out to be.
Right.
Everybody expected a dub when you saw Vanderbilt on the schedule. Well, that's not the case anymore. I think everybody expected, Georgia to just kind of run the table and be super successful, but who knows about Georgia? I mean, they could be great. They could be not great. We've seen a tale of two halves from the Bulldogs. I think a lot of people expected Arkansas to kind of be in that same category as Vanderbilt, but obviously they're better. Texas A&M, Mike Elko's got the Aggie rebuild kickstarted. Like everything's going great in College Station after that opening week loss. So it's just hard to know anymore what the schedules are going to be. And I think we're seeing more parity in college football than we ever have. And so, initially probably a little bit irritated like every Oklahoma fan, and maybe even still a little bit irritated, but it's just the way the cookie crumbles. And hey, everybody's going to have to play tough games in the SEC. It's just the reality of the situation. But as a college football fan, dude, it's going to be incredible theater every single week in the SEC. I know Texas fans, like they probably got super excited. And even though Georgia's a tough team, how cool is it that Georgia's coming to Austin and going to be in DKR for a regular season game? It's just incredible. And when Alabama comes to Norman later in the season, that's just going to be phenomenal. It's what we all wanted and kind of got a little bit tired of in the Big 12 is just the monotony of it. Well, now every week there's a fun matchup that either you're a part of or your rival's a part of, or there's a marquee matchup somewhere on the schedule that gets everybody excited. And then you get a Vanderbilt, Alabama that is maybe the game of the year. And because of Vanderbilt, all of a sudden Diego Ball is just taking the nation by storm. It's just super fun to watch, man. Just as trying to like take yourself out of the Oklahoma sphere for a second. It's just fun. It's just fun.
Yeah, man. Yeah. When you take off the insert whatever team colored sunglasses and just look at the full landscape, we have so many people that are, like NIL ruined our game, transfer portal, it's ruining our game. And I get the complaints. I get the downside to all of it. But like you just said, man, we have parity in a sport that, hey, Alabama won what are they doing, 6 or 7 titles in a decade, or maybe not that many. It felt like it, but it's just like the SEC is, has been king for so long, and like all of a sudden it's not like, hey, you have little teams popping up. They're getting players in the portal. They're able to use their NIL and attract. Does Diego Pavia ever play in Vanderbilt, live in Nashville without NIL? I have no idea, but if it's my narrative, if I say no, he's not, he wouldn't have without NIL or transfer portal. So that's what I choose to believe. I think Diego is a fantastic player. I think it's so cool, obviously, for college football, what happened last Saturday in Nashville. I love the post-game interview, every bit of it, from start to finish, because, hey, I'm that same person. I'm not afraid to talk about faith. I'm also not going to pretend like I'm perfect all the time. So I have a bigger love and respect for Diego and what they just accomplished. And then, hey, just a few hours later in Fayetteville, Arkansas, they're doing the same thing. They're partying it up, having a good time, shocking Tennessee. But yeah, going back on the schedules, man, I mean, it's incredible to think, hey, like we had Mississippi State come to town, which, is Mississippi State, but it's not a team that's been to DKR. And it's, hey, Jeff Levy, who beat us last year. And it's like really easy to get excited about that. And then obviously Georgia and all that they've done over college football in the last few years. Kirby Smart, some would call him the best coach in college football. It depends on who you ask, of course. You don't have a chance to play them at home, a night game, when looking back over the last 12, 13 plus years. And we don't get to see you guys in DKR. We get Oklahoma State every other year or TCU every other year, which never went very well. And so, yeah, these are really big times for Texas. And you can tell by the ticket prices. My God, man, everything is through the roof right now. It's crazy to look at. But definitely loving every bit of the SEC move, loving the fact that, hey, like we have to worry about the Vanderbilt game. Like that's cool to me. It's a great for college football. When looking at their schedule last year when it dropped, everybody's like, wow, Vanderbilt, that's one of your true away games. Like that's because, I mean, if you look at us, like the Red River game is considered an away game for Texas this year. So we only have 3 true away games in conference, and Arkansas, A&M. Okay, I was like, you know what? I feel like we deserve a Vanderbilt because those are going to be insanely hostile environments in Fayetteville and in College Station. Now Vanderbilt too, we'll probably have just as many Longhorns there, but Clark Lee and his group, they know what they're doing. So Kentucky looks better. Arkansas, I think I tweeted this. I don't know if you saw it, but it's one of my favorite tweets I've had in a while. But I said everybody wanted to laugh at our schedule, and which just I know we're recently followed each other on the app. 79% of the things I say are in jest. Okay, it's up to you to figure out what the 21% is and when I'm being serious or not. I think that's about the fair average, but or percentage. But I tweeted the other day and I was like, this is like the second quarter of Vanderbilt Bama, and I'm just looking to have some fun. But I tweeted and said, everybody wanted to talk about our schedule and the haters, and I was like, Vanderbilt, better than expected. Arkansas, better than expected. Kentucky, better than expected. A&M, better than expected. Florida, as expected. Because they're just so down. It's hard to say too many nice things about those guys right now. I love Florida Gator football. I hope they figure it out, because I think the sport, I hate to be one of those guys, but I think the sport is just a little bit better. Maybe when Florida's good, or maybe a little bit more fun. I also have like a weird obsession with alligators. They are definitely my favorite animal. So could be that.
Well, the Swamp's also just a cool venue too. Like,
right.
When that place is rocking and things are going well, like it's a cool venue for college football, man.
And they have an original hand sign. They don't have to borrow one like you guys up there north of the Red River. I might get in trouble here. I got to watch what I say. Cornell gives me a lot of heck on the timeline.
My man Cornell. Yeah,
he's on there, man. I like it. He's not afraid of getting in there and combating me whatsoever. Big respect to him. Love the interactions, buddy. Thank you for being here and watching. But yeah, John, got anything else you want to go over, mention, bring up before we let you get out of here, brother?
Oh man, it's just going to be a fun one, dude. I'm excited that it's an afternoon kick. Everybody gets to go and enjoy the state fair. I don't. I got to coach soccer that morning with my daughter, but excited that everybody gets to go kind of and just really kind of take the full experience, as opposed to it being a 11 a.m. kick, which became kind of the norm for OU Texas for so long. But it gets to be an afternoon kick, and then just all the madness that's going to take place. I think it's going to be an extra special environment. It's always special, right? It's always an incredible environment, an incredible atmosphere. The pageantry is always so great, but this year, with it being an afternoon kick, I think it's going to just build the anticipation, build the energy, and it's probably going to be a little bit cooler than what it has been in recent years too. So maybe everybody's going to be feeling a lot better going into the stadium. So I think it's going to be, super fun. And it's just going to be another great opportunity for Oklahoma and Texas to put themselves on display in front of the SEC audience, who wants to claim that some other games are the greater rivalry. It's not true. OU Texas, the greatest rivalry in college football, possibly in sports, nothing else like it. It's going to be such a great weekend for college football.
I'm definitely glad that this day means as much to you as it does to me. It's elite.
Let me tell you, so when we lived in Ethiopia, internet was not always a great resource for us. So I remember one night, our first year there, 2013, and my wife and I, we go to our living room because that's where the best reception was. And we turn on my phone and we find the radio broadcast for OU Texas 2013. I want to say it was a loss. I can't remember exactly right off the top of my head. I don't have the years memorized quite like you. I've got a lot of things that have happened, but
you're right. You're right.
Yeah. And then that next year in 2014, wife and I are 2014, there was a little hotel near us. And so for my wife's birthday, it's in September, I bought us a room at the local hotel so we could have good internet and be able to stream the game that night. And it's just, I don't know. It's always meant a lot. I'm not an OU alum. My wife is. She got 2 degrees from there. So I'm riding her coattails a little bit, but man, love OU football, and our relationship grew Saturdays through the fall, starting in 2007. So I've been, a fan ever since. But man, the second Saturday in October, OU Texas, it's the game. And my wife will say this to me every year: no matter what else happens, we got to beat Texas. And I'm like, come on. I mean, you can still go like 11-1 and stuff. Nope, got to beat Texas. I'm like, okay, fair enough. Got to beat Texas.
I get that. That's a beautiful story, man. Really, thank you for sharing that. You can tell, what college football means to people, and it's a great deal. It means everything to me. Very big connecting point for me, my siblings, my dad, and obviously for you and your wife. And to kind of, that just is a small part of your relationship, but it is a part of your relationship. I had Tyranny and Chad on last night. Obviously, they've grown up together, Sooner fans, married now, little Sooner family. Like, you know, I mean, it's cool. And so, with that being said, like, I hate the hell out of your football team. You probably hate the hell out of mine. You know, we are just people. And so, something that Travis and I talked about on the show last night, you know, if you could talk ball, something we said earlier, you know, we're all just people. You know, we hate some of our fan bases strictly because there's those 10 same internet trolls. Cornelius, sorry, Cornel, I love you, buddy. They get on there and banter in the wrong way. Cornell, you do it in the right way. So, yeah, man, for you Longhorns that were overly hard on John about the Jackson Arnold take,
or rightly hard on John. I'll take it. I'm a grown man. I'm a man.
So
I'm 42.
Hey, there
Talk
you
to me
go.
about it.
Yeah, talk to him about it.
Yeah.
Oh, Coach Gundy, man, love the guy. But they're in a little bit of the mud right now, man. They're struggling. But guys, Red River is upon us. We're getting close. It's almost here. I can almost smell the Fletcher's Corny Dogs and the stale beer on the walkout. You know that you can smell all over that place. But no, it's very cool that you mentioned the 2:30 kickoff. Whether it be the weather or the few extra hours of tailgating, I have no doubt that people will indeed feel a little bit better going into that stadium than they have in years past. John, thanks for doing this. It was fun to talk with you. Maybe we can do something post game as well. I can't sit here and ask you for an official prediction just in case, I don't know if you have something lined up with Sooners Wire or Locked On Prediction or Locked On Sooners, but I'll be looking for your official prediction whenever it comes out. I'm going to drop mine on Thursday, but good luck, bud. We'll see you this weekend.
Yeah, it's been a blast. Thanks for having me on, man.
Absolutely. Good night, guys, and we'll be back on the channel